So this was probably a very straightforward way of getting data from RFEM into Grasshopper. But actually, let's imagine that, okay, I want to import the surfaces, but not all the surfaces, but just, let's say, a particular story or level of an RFEM building. So for that, imagine that we were dealing with a very huge and complex model. For that, we can also filter the objects that we are importing into Grasshopper. So let's try to explain that. So I am going to get rid of these components here, and let's start from scratch once again. And in order to filter the parameters that we are getting into Grasshopper, we have to use, of course, the filter data component here. And we are going to start with the nodes. But basically, you can see that we have this drop-down menu here, so we can actually choose any kind of RFM object to filter information or to filter in order to import it into Grasshopper. Okay, so let's start with the nodes, and let's put Grasshopper in this side of the screen. And now we are just going to import the nodes, so let's set just the nodes to true. And in order to use the filters, we have to connect them to this filter parameter. But of course, before trying to import the data, we have to specify some filter options. And in this case, if you take a look into the nodes, you can realize that I have attached a comment to some of them. So what we are going to do to start off is to try to filter the RFM objects by comments. In this case, let's say that we just want to import the objects that have a comment which says Bautile 1, like that. Okay, so if we set that as a comment and we click, and of course the filter object is connected here, now we try to import these objects, and if we display the geometry of our RFM nodes, we can see that actually we cannot see very much because probably let me import the members and surfaces as well, and I promise that I have also applied this comment to those objects there. So let's try to get also the members and the surfaces with that which belongs to this kind of building part. So let's plug these filter objects here. Let's click into run once again, and okay, so now we can see that we are importing just part of our RFM model. And actually, if you click here, you can see that the surface has the comment Bautile 1 attached to it, but not the other surface. So this is a way of filtering data that we are importing into Grasshopper, and of course it has a lot of possibilities. But besides, okay, so now let's disconnect these filters, because besides filtering by comment, we can also filter by node. Because for instance, let's imagine that we just want to import a certain group of members into Rhino, and we haven't defined a comment for them, so we can also specify the index of those particular members. And okay, you might realize that this input parameter is not an integer for the index, but a text. And the reason for that is that we can also use this kind of RFM format for defining the list. So if I do it this way, or let's do it even in a more interrogated way, so 1.4, 6, 9, so I should be getting now these items into Grasshopper, and just these, let's say, 6 members. So let's try to do it once again, and of course I have to deselect the nodes and surfaces, because otherwise I could import all of them. So let's try to repeat the import process, and just for these members here. So if we do that, of course we can see that we are just getting members, the nodes and the surfaces are just empty, and these are the nodes, the members that I am getting from the RFM model. Not all of them, but just the members whose index is included in this list. And of course, we have more advanced options as well. So let's try to get, for instance, some nodal supports into Grasshopper. And for instance, we can use, of course, these advanced options. So for instance, nodes, we can also specify the list of nodes and 15.16. And if you remember, let's get back to the nodal supports. Now I should be importing just the nodal support number 2 and number 3, not the number 1, because it doesn't have these nodes as a property. So let's plug this filter here, and of course let's activate the option for importing nodal supports. Where are you? There you are. And let's click on run once again, and if I try to get the information of my nodal supports, you can see that I'm just, hopefully, that I'm importing just these two nodal supports, the number 2 and number 3, as we're expecting. So this is a way of defining a RFEM list, but of course, in case that you are dealing with, let's say, more complex list, you can do it parametrically, and in my opinion, the best way to do it is to use the text join component. So in this case, you can specify here a list of numbers, okay, but preferably from 0 to 1, no, from 0 to 10, something like that. Okay, so now you can see that we are getting a list of numbers here, but of course it could be a very good approach to start with 1 and not with 0, because there is no RFEM object who has an index of 0. And now we have this kind of a string here, and we just need to specify as a fragment separator a comma. So if we do that, this is a very basic and perhaps the most straightforward approach to define RFEM lists from Grasshopper, which we can use for filtering data that we are importing or for defining even new RFEM objects. So imagine that we wanted to define the node list this way, and yeah, like that, and so on and so forth. And finally, you can realize here that we can also import objects based on the geometry, on where they are located into our model. So for instance, you can realize that all of these objects here in this plane are they have a coordinate set of 0. So let's try to import them this way. So let's get rid of my nodal support, and let's set this to false once again, and we are going to import the members, nodes and surfaces, but which are in this plane like C0. So let's set advanced options, and the coordinates, actually you have to be careful here, because this input, it is not an integer or a number, but it is a domain, which means that you have to specify the interval in which these objects are included. So in this case, this is this is very easy, because this is going to be 0. But imagine that if you were specifying, I don't know, the objects that have a height of C10, if you do it this way, actually you are defining a domain from 0 to 10. No, so this way you wouldn't be specifying the objects that are just with a height of 10 meters. So you should specify it this way. But in this case, this is very simple, because we just need the objects with C0 meters. So let's do that for our nodes, for our members, oh, there we go, and for our surfaces. So members, surfaces, and members. And let's plug these filters here once again. And let's zoom out a bit. There we are. And let's click on run once again. You can see that we are importing just the component, the RFEM objects that are in this plane, but also in this case we are we are combining two filters, like the height and the comment. We are importing just the objects that are in this plane, C0, but also the objects that have this comment. So let's get rid of this filter option here, and if we repeat that import process once again, we can see that we are getting now all objects that are in this plane, which C is 0. Okay, so I think that was a lot of information regarding how to filter RFEM objects that we want to import into Grasshopper.